Hello, I'm David DeCosmo. Welcome to ECTV Live. Joining me today is Bill Goldsworthy, who many of you know is associated with the Red Cross here in northeastern Pennsylvania. And Bill, there is never a shortage of topics when you are visiting us because you not only handle local emergencies, but you wind up sending crews out to practically anywhere to aid others who are in need. And I would think that 2019 has not been a year to sit back and relax.
Never is, David. We're everywhere. And I got a great story for you, actually. Last couple weeks, as you know, there was Hurricane Dorian. Well, I happened to be in Myrtle Beach at the time when it hit. So I experienced firsthand a hurricane, evacuations, how to be prepared for an emergency, and that's one of the things I'd like to talk to you about today.
Absolutely, sure. We've had so much of this nasty weather, and it isn't limited to those south of us. We have been hit in our area with seemingly more than ever. I mean, I remember growing up, I lived in Hazleton, grew up in Hazleton. When I heard the word tornado, I thought about Dorothy in Kansas.
Yeah.
I never thought about northeastern Pennsylvania. Now, maybe we had them and they weren't being reported as much. I don't know. I don't think so. I think we've just had changes, and in the case of changes that can turn into trouble, we've had more of them.
Yes. We've had our share of them right here in northeastern Pennsylvania. As you remember, most recently there was one in Wilkes-Barre, there was one in Pittston Township the past year or two. Up in Susquehanna County, there's been a couple. And hurricanes and tornadoes sometimes go hand in hand, and I didn't realize that. As my experience showed from down in Myrtle Beach a couple weeks ago, we were preparing for the hurricane to hit at 5:30 in the evening. 3:30 in the morning, my two cell phones and my wife's cell phone started blasting tornado warnings. Seek emergency shelter. So, being the Red Crosser that I am, we were prepared, and we have a room in our home where it's our safe room. My wife went into the safe room. I knew we still had power, so I put the TV on to see where the tornadoes were. They were about 10 miles away from us, sort of circled right around our community, but it went on for 2 hours, which I didn't realize later on, talking to a good meteorologist friend of mine who works for the Red Cross, Dave Skutnik.
Yeah. Veteran weather forecaster.
Yeah, Dave said, tornadoes come before hurricanes, which I never realized it. But for 2 hours straight, we had tornado warnings on our cell phones. And luckily, nothing came to our area. Like I said, they sort of swirled around us as the winds of a hurricane do. And we were fortunate in that respect.
But you know what's interesting there is you've handled these things from this end, but there's nothing like being involved in it to get the feeling as to what people really face. You brought a bag along, and you said before we went on the air that this really ties in with the old Boy Scout model. Be prepared. Right?
Absolutely. I did not have one of these down with me in Myrtle Beach, but I created one. I made it in a box. But the Red Cross does sell this package right here, which is basically a 3-day survival kit in case of an emergency. And we sell it on our website, redcross.org.
Okay.
But in here, I mean, there's so many things you should be prepared with. How about this, an empty bottle?
An empty bottle?
Well, you have empty bottles and full bottles. You need empty containers to maybe be able to get water from a water source that may be supplied.
From a safe source somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And you should also have, of course, a couple bottles of water for yourself in here to drink. So that's just one item in there. There's food. In this case, we have some energy bars, prepackaged energy bars. You're going to need something to eat. Remember, when you're evacuated, you may be evacuated for a day, might be 3 days, might be a week. You don't know.
You can never tell now.
And until you get to a Red Cross shelter, you may be evacuated to somewhere temporary before you get to a Red Cross shelter, where Red Crossers, we supply you with food, a cot, blankets. But until that time, there's other things you may need. A change of clothes. a blanket, in case you need it, a notepad and pencil. You don't think about little things like that. First aid kit.
Yeah, one of the things I would have thought about right off.
First aid kit. You want a first aid kit. An extra battery. This is a battery charger for your cell phone. Everybody has cell phones anymore. You may need an extra battery because you may not have power.
Yeah, and the smartphones go down all too quickly.
Exactly. So there's all different types of cell phone chargers. This just happens to be one of them.
They aren't expensive, by the way.
They're not at all. They're not. And one important thing you need is a radio and a flashlight. This particular one that the Red Cross sells, it's a flashlight, it's an LED flashlight, and an AM/FM radio, and it not only runs on batteries, there's a crank where you can crank it to give it enough power to hear or turn the light on.
You got one of those. Yep, I do have one.
I do too. Now I do. But then there's a lot of things that we would think of, and I'm just going to get these out of the way.
Yeah.
You know, the things you would normally think of, okay? Medicine. You got to remember to take your medicine, extra medicine with you. You got to remember to take possibly stuff for our four-legged relatives.
Yep.
You know, if you have a dog or a cat that you're taking with you, you need dog food. You need a leash, a harness, maybe a muzzle for a dog, because if you go into a shelter, some shelters don't even take dogs. We usually have, Red Cross usually supplies an area for animals, but we like to have a muzzle on them because a lot of people, you don't know what'll happen with the dog.
Sure.
So you got to think about them. Other things you might want to think about, depending, you know, you might want to think about some extra scissors, some tape, in case something happens where you got to improvise something. You know, there's a lot of there's a lot of items that we recommend that you might be able to take, but again, it all depends on where you're going. But most importantly, within the evacuation, is to make plans with your family. And one of the things we recommend on our website, you could download this little sheet of paper here, which basically comes out to make a little contact card. It folds up, and on this little card, it has all of your important information, your name, phone, home address, contacts for someone, if you have to get out of the area, contacts, names of your relatives, your friends.
Yeah.
Because if your phone is dead, at least you'll have it written down.
Something happens to you too.
Something happens.
And you're not
Exactly.
able to convey the information. At least they find the information on you. You can, you know, they're able to contact next of kin to say, hey, you're hurt.
Exactly.
Or whatever, because people get separated in disaster very easily.
Absolutely. And you know, we're talking about hurricanes and tornadoes, but even a simple thing as a house fire, God forbid your house catches on fire. The other thing we make sure that we stress is you have a meeting place for your family. So a house fire, we say meet us on the corner by the big tree or at your neighbor's front porch, whatever. But during a disaster, a hurricane or tornado, maybe you're out working and your wife is home and you both get evacuated. You got to have a meeting place or a place where you can contact. So again, you may be sent to one shelter, she may be sent to another shelter. What we usually say is make one point of contact, be it your sister, your brother, your aunt, your uncle, in a different state.
Yeah.
And have them be the person that you're going to call and say, hey, if my wife calls, tell her I'm here and I'm safe. Your wife calls, hey, tell my husband I'm here, I'm safe. That way everybody has a central point of communications and we know that everyone is safe. It's just
I'm going to go back to way back to Tropical Storm Agnes, 1972 in Wyoming Valley, when all of the telephones were wiped out. There was no telephone communication. Now, cell phones were not prevalent then. They are now. But a cell phone is still only as good as the cell towers and the power that to those towers.
Yes.
So it's a great aid and it's an additional aid, but it's not a foolproof aid. They can also go down. So having these kind of things prepared in advance, contact points, contact people, are valuable. And I can tell you, and I'll go back to 72 again, I remember there have been a couple flood emergencies since then. And I was asked, what do I recommend? And the first thing I say is, if you're asked or told to evacuate, do so. You may think you are totally and perfectly safe and cannot be in jeopardy. Number one, there's no guarantee of that. Number two, if you are not, you may put a rescuer at risk coming to save you. So I say, go out, have a nice night out in a nice pleasant resort somewhere for a night that's away from disaster area. Number two, take with you the most important things. If you have a passport, take your passport along. Make sure you have your driver's license. In addition to that, unless it's going to take you an hour to get them, get your family photos together and take them, because the one thing that's irreplaceable are the memories.
Yes.
Totally irreplaceable. Homes can be lost, but people who lost homes complained after the floods that they didn't have their wedding picture, they didn't have their graduation pictures. So that's a bit of my advice from personal experience.
And that's true, and of course, like you said, that's the last thing you should gather. The most important things are to make sure you're safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I agree with you, because I went through the flood also, and 2011 flood, and yeah, it was tough when you come back and you realize all the things you had to destroy in your home that were family cherished memories.
Yeah,
it's tough.
Irreplaceable in many cases.
Absolutely.
Sure.
But you made a good point about taking some documentation, either be it your birth certificate, your marriage license, your passport, things like that. You should have some kind of official documentation with you when you are being evacuated or leaving. And you made a good point about how bad the storms are. Again, I'm going to go back to a couple weeks ago, because I just experienced this. They evacuated parts of the area along the beach in Myrtle Beach, and where I was probably about 4 or 5 miles off the beach, so we were not evacuated. Hurricane Dorian, when it hit, was high Category 2, very low Category 3. It was right on the border. I told my wife, we'll never stay for a Category 4 or 5, because it was a very scary situation. All that rain, we got almost 15 inches of rain within like 24 hours, and the high winds, it was scary. It was very scary.
And we make this point not to scare you, but to let you know that we have had more and more, it seems, of these occasions when Mother Nature is turning on us. And we'll go back to that Boy Scout theme, but be prepared. It's the best thing that you can possibly do. One of the things I'm dismayed about is that, unfortunately, the ability of the media to reach out and provide information to people has been vastly decreased by the consolidation of primarily radio under one umbrella, where if you've got a local station but it's not run locally.
Right.
And that is something that I have been very disappointed about, because that's where you're going to have to turn. It's very difficult to be running from an emergency and watching a television set. You have the radio is the most important contact. Now, most of the radios, like the emergency radio that Bill just showed you, contain a weather frequency.
Yes.
And the weather frequency does provide pretty good information about what's happening on a very timely basis.
Yes.
So, I would suggest, if nothing else, you can tune to that might help you out. Yeah. You get back to the more common problems that you have to deal with, the house fires and such like that. And I've told you before, when I was in the field, when I was reporting on a fire, I'd go to a victim and I'd ask if everyone was all right, and the next thing I would say was, have you checked with Red Cross?
Right.
Because the firemen are supposed to tell you that, but sometimes they're still too busy. They will tell you that, and all the services that you're able to offer. One of the programs you guys have been involved in is so very impressive to me is you've been actively going out putting smoke detectors in homes.
Yes.
Is that still going on?
Yes, it is. We install free smoke alarms in anyone's home that wants them and needs them. We've installed now over 15,000
Is that right?
smoke alarms in our 4 counties that we cover here in northeastern Pennsylvania.
15,000.
15,000. We have known 2 documented saves. We had one in Pittston, and we've had one in Plains that we know of. And there may be more, but we weren't informed.
But 2 definite cases where people
def-
said, the alarm went off and I knew to get out.
And it was our smoke alarms that were in the
Right.
home. Yeah, so we have 2 documented saves so far that we know of up here. But yes, smoke alarms, you got to remember with fires. I'm a past fire chief.
I know that,
Many
yeah.
moons ago. But one thing you got to remember is it's not normally fire that kills people. It's the smoke. Smoke is what disenables you from getting out of the home. So if you get an early warning by a smoke alarm, you can get out of the home quicker. You have 2 minutes to get out of a burning home. That's the national standard, 2 minutes, because after that, there's enough smoke in there that it could kill you.
Mm-hmm.
So the smoke alarms are very, very important. We partner usually with local fire companies, various organizations, Rotary clubs, Lions clubs, school clubs, colleges. We do a lot of work with a lot of the college students. We were just out in Wilkes-Barre with the Wilkes University ice hockey team.
Oh.
And what we do is we'll pick an area in the community. Usually we go by what the fire department recommends, what area, and just go door to door and install free smoke alarms. But we will take anyone. All you got to do is call us at your local Red Cross office, and we will put you on a list. And when we get 4 or 5 homes in your community, we will come up and install them all in one day. And we will install enough to make your home safe. We're worried about saving your life, making sure you get out of your home.
Check out these results.
My phone's talking to me.
It's an emergency alert.
I know, yeah. We want to make sure you get out. We want to prevent anyone from getting hurt or killed in a fire. So we want to do as many of these smoke alarms as we can.
This is a fantastic program, as are so many of the other programs that Red Cross has offered over the years. They've done CPR training, babysitting training for youngsters to know exactly how to properly handle when they're in a babysitting situation. I think that's fantastic. But these things aren't free. I mean, they're free to a lot of people. You offer them, but they aren't free. So how are you funding everything?
You know, it's amazing. And I never knew this until I started here. The Red Cross is mandated by the government to respond to all natural disasters, fires, floods, hurricanes, but we don't get any government funding. So I always say we're the largest unfunded government mandate. You know, being an old political person, yeah. But what we count on donations from individuals, from corporations. One of our biggest local sponsors for the smoke alarms is, could I mention the name?
Absolutely. Sure.
UGI. UGI Corporation is one of our major sponsors for the free smoke alarms.
Now, this is important because
And-
these things do cost money. You're taking them out and putting them in for free. You've saved at least 2 lives you know of.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
how do you put a value on
Yeah,
that?
exactly. But where the Red Cross makes their money again is from individuals, from corporations, from your blood donations, because then we do sell the blood then to the hospitals. We supply it to the hospitals, but they pay for it. But that helps us give money back towards those that are in need. 91 cents of every dollar donated to the Red Cross goes back to client services.
Wow.
We're the only organization that could say that.
That's a
91
wonderful.
cents of every dollar. So there's only 9 cents that's used for me, for the buildings, for the supplies. Amazing.
Yeah.
It's truly amazing.
And since you brought it up, the blood donation situation varies so much. Summertime is a rough time because people are away. You know, now you hit the rest. Well, I mean, I guess the need is always there.
The need is always there. There's such a drastic need for blood. Summers are very rough because believe it or not, the colleges and high schools are one of our major sources for blood donations, and they're out in the summer.
Yeah.
So we're always looking for blood drives in the summer, but there's always a critical need for blood. You never know when there's going to be an emergency. The problem with blood is a short shelf life. That's hard to say. Short shelf life. Blood only lasts like 50 some days on the shelf. plasma and platelets only last like 2 weeks. So it's like a very short shelf life. That's why it constantly has to be replenished.
And you have certain days at the center when it's open for donations. Plus, you've got the bloodmobile that still makes the rounds.
Yes, and we're always looking for corporations, churches, schools to set up blood drives with us. All you got to do is call us, and depending on what area you're in, we'll hook you up with the right individual that sets up the blood drives. But we'll either come to you or you can come to us. But we'd love to come to corporations and set up right in a conference room or a cafeteria style room and be right there for your employees to come down and donate blood. You're doing a lot for them in that respect, because first of all, you're making them feel really well that it's the easiest way in the world to help save a life. Donate blood or your plasma. And I know I feel great every time I do it. I donate every 3 weeks, and I feel great when I walk out of there. It's like I just saved a life, and it didn't cost me anything except a little bit of my time.
Sure. Now Bill, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about this. As we're speaking, there's a sign in front of the Red Cross building here in Scranton. It doesn't say, please give blood. It says for sale. So what's going on?
Well, you know, every business goes through transitions and changes. And now with new electronic ways of communications and getting work done, all right, we don't need these huge, big offices anymore to store a lot of people, because a lot of people now are working from home. A lot of our reports, a lot of our items that we do gets done on a computer, and a lot of our volunteers have a computer at their house and they do the work there. So we don't need big, large offices. About 4 months ago, we sold our office in Hazleton, and I got a small office donated to us. So instead of maintaining a large, big building and all that expenses, we're in a small office that was donated to us. We only pay for utilities.
So the money saved can be put into programs.
Big money saved, put into programs. We're doing the same thing here in Scranton. We're doing this across the country.
Wow.
But here in Scranton, that building is a very large, gorgeous building. I always bragged I had the most beautiful office in the city of Scranton, because it's beautiful wood, fireplace in the office and everything.
Classic building.
Oh my God, it was great. It was built by the Peck family for their daughter when she got married many, many moons ago, and then it was donated to the Red Cross. And we are in the process of selling it and consolidating. We'll be moving in with the blood center, working out of there when we need an office
Hanover
space.
Township?
No, the one right here on Olive Street.
Oh, in Scranton. Okay.
Here in Scranton. We're not leaving Scranton. We never will leave Scranton.
Okay.
You know, the Red Cross is not, it's not built on buildings and equipment and things like that. We're built on our volunteers. We have a strong volunteer base here in Northeast PA. Lackawanna County has a real strong base, and they will always be here to serve those that are in need here in Lackawanna County. We keep most of our trucks and our vehicles in the Wilkes-Barre office, which has a huge parking lot, and we have a supply center and garage where we store supplies. So that works out great, and we will continue to serve up here by our volunteers that are stationed here and live here in the community.
Now, what about volunteers? Although you have a strong base, I don't suppose you would turn down anyone who might wants to come out and...
We take volunteers all the time, and just because you don't know what you think you could help us with, you could help us with anything. We need everything from people to answer phones, to pack bags like this, to respond to fires, to sit at a blood drive and do paperwork.
Let's touch that one real quickly while we have a few minutes left. Responding to fires. That's almost a daily kind of thing in northeastern Pennsylvania, unfortunately.
Yes.
What would a volunteer be tasked with doing by responding to a fire?
Well, first of all, we train all of our volunteers on whatever field that they want to go into. But those that respond to a fire could get called out in the middle of the night, come up, put your arm around the person that just had their house destroyed and say, we're here to help. And we are. We basically just do a little bit of paperwork. We comfort them. We give them a gift card to get them into a hotel, get them some food, get them some clothing. and then we follow up with them with other needs they may have. God forbid if there was a severe injury or death in the fire, we have people that will come out, ministerial like people that will come out and work with them and support
Counseling
them
and such, yeah.
with counseling through this devastating fire. And our volunteers, again, they're all trained for that, and we're there. Again, if you have a special knack that you want to be volunteering in, we'll hook you up. We'll train you and get you ready. If you want to be the one that gets deployed to the hurricanes in Myrtle Beach or Texas or wherever, we train you for those items also.
So if they have the time, you have the training and the need.
Absolutely, absolutely. The Red Cross, again, in Northeast PA, we have 5 employees. We have 400 volunteers. There's no Red Cross without volunteers.
The training still goes on, like I mentioned, CPR, the babysitting training, think life-saving, those still go on?
A big one's CPR and AED training. Again, going back to the corporations, we'll come in and train your employees. It's another perk, another benefit that you could give your employees because God forbid if they need it at home, they could use it at home, and they're going to say, wow, if it wasn't for my company, I may not have been able to save that life in my backyard or at my house or in my neighborhood.
Sure.
It's just, and it's so valuable.
So if someone watching wants information on training, some of those programs we mentioned, if they'd like to volunteer, what do they do?
Call your local Red Cross office. You can call the Scranton number, the Wilkes-Barre number, the Hazleton number, any of the Red Cross offices. Just call us, and it's going to come into our office in Wilkes-Barre, 570-823-7161. And what we'll be there. Call me personally, my direct line, 570-846-3308. And we'll get you set up with anything you want to do.
Bill Goldsworthy, thank you so much for joining us on ECTV Live. Always tremendous information, and why not? You do such tremendous work. You and your volunteers, my compliments to you as always.
Thank you, and it's the volunteers really that make the Red Cross.
Okay, Bill Goldsworthy, thank you, and Mark McGlory, thank you for doing your work behind the scenes here. I'm David DeCosmo for ECTV Live. Till we see you again next time, here's hoping all your news is good.